and welcome to Healthcare IT Today, where we explore the latest healthcare technology trends and discover valuable insights in health IT. I'm Colin Hung, and today I'm joined by two gentlemen who'll be talking about what they do and the history of their company. I'm joined by Daniel Hamburger, CEO of Provation, and Craig Moriarty, Senior Vice President, Strategy and Product at Provation. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Colin. Pleasure to be here.
So let me start by asking this. I love hearing origin stories. I love when people talk about how they started, what the original problem was. How did Provation start, and what was that original problem that created the company?
Yeah, it's hard to believe. So Provation started 26 years ago in the basement of Hennepin County Medical Center here in Minneapolis, where we're still headquartered. And it was actually started by some clinicians, and the challenge and some young startup programmers. And the challenge that they were really looking at is how could these, it was in the GI space, but how could they better articulate and better communicate the procedure that they had just performed on the patient? So communicating that to other caregivers. And what they found at the time was they were dictating these reports. There was really no standard in terms of how that was being dictated. So there wasn't that common language that clinicians were speaking, and so they wanted to really drive to more of a standard way to communicate procedures. At the same point in time, there were pieces of the procedure that were stored elsewhere. So the images were being stored elsewhere on Navigraph paper. And so the real focus here was to standardize the way that we report on medical procedures. And then over time, as that was built out, really focus on how do you kind of automate that entire workflow. And so it's not only generating the procedure documentation itself, but then think about all the downstream activities that you can automate. And so that brings us to today, where we continue to build upon that vision to focus on automating the workflow for physicians, empowering physicians to deliver quality healthcare.
As a company that works closely with hospitals, ASCs, and anesthesia group, what are you seeing and hearing as it relates to clinician burnout, and how are you trying to help?
Yeah, Colin, I think that's a great question, very timely. It's an issue. All of us at Provation here are really concerned with this issue. I think it's so important for us as vendors to do our part to help solve the problem. Not that we can do everything, but we can do our part. So look, we've always built our solutions around the clinician's workflow, so the doctor's workflow, the nurse's workflow. And the focus is on improving their productivity and efficiency. So we try to come up with innovative solutions to improve productivity. In fact, that's where our name comes from. Productivity via innovation, that's Provation. So that's kind of always been there. But I have to say, COVID was a wake-up call for us. We realized we can do even more for our customers, and that's why we've expanded our capabilities into kind of pre-procedure and post-procedure. A lot of people know Provation more for the intra-procedure, documentation and workflow automation. We've really expanded pre and post-procedure so that we could help the clinicians throughout the whole patient journey. And I think we put more emphasis also on integrations and partnerships with others in the healthcare ecosystem so we can further streamline processes, for nurses and doctors.
So it sounds like what you're saying, Daniel, if I can just paraphrase a little bit, is obviously as a healthcare IT company, you can't necessarily have a direct impact on clinician burnout. There's so many other factors that have everything to do with patient volumes and things like that. But what I'm hearing you say is that as a healthcare IT company, you can put a focus on integration, making sure that how you integrate with the workflow is smooth, so you're not causing more burden on the people using your application.
Yeah, I think that's right. And, the way we always think of it is, in fact, our stated purpose is to empower providers to deliver quality healthcare for all. We're trying to empower them. And part of that means helping them spend less time on the computer. So whoever heard of a software company who wants you to spend less time with our software, but less time with the computer, less time with the software, more time with patients. And I know that sounds kind of obvious, perhaps, but we can really document that. For example, in procedure documentation, we're well known, one of our big claims to fame for Provation is a physician can document a procedure in like 2 minutes versus 10 or 12 minutes with traditional methods of documentation. It's been proven out in study after study. So that's kind of how we're trying to do it.
That's great. And thank you for providing that very specific example. That was going to be my next question was, what kind of specific examples? Because, let's be honest, a lot of people do talk about helping, with burnout or helping reduce the burden on their end users. But, you've given just a concrete example. What used to take 10 minutes now with a solution like yours takes less than 2.
Yeah, it takes less than 2 and be higher quality than, for example, dictation and transcription, where a physician got to look at it a second time. There can be errors. And as I said, we've kind of moved from that intra procedure pre and post. And also into other specialties, anesthesia via a couple of acquisitions of eye procedures and e-pre-op. There's a huge time savings opportunities and reducing duplicate documentation. A lot of anesthesia documentation is still on paper. And then from a patient engagement kind of pre-procedure perspective, we've got a product called Surgical Valet, where the patients get do their online intake form and things like that. And we've seen studies where our customers have been able to reduce unnecessary preoperative tests by as much as 68%, which I know sounds like a shocking number, but there's a lot of unnecessary tests. The software is actually helping to optimize the preoperative test environment. So those are some ways we can make our modest contribution, I guess.
So Craig, can you tell me, what makes Provation special? What makes it unique? Is there something you're doing differently than your competitors or other people in this space?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And many of our competitors really don't have the ability to maintain what we've actually been able to build, let alone kind of adapt in terms of what they're hearing from our customers. I think what's very unique, it's kind of part of the Provation DNA, is that we really, from day one, it was all about really understanding the clinical workflow, marrying that clinical workflow with software, but also kind of even going a step further, incorporating deep medical content. So, really, think like a clinician and then build in the content to support that workflow so that it's turnkey for those clinicians. And it really ties in. I mean, our focus has been clinical productivity since day one. And we taught, if you think about the Provation name, it really came from productivity plus innovation. And so that's Provation. And but at the same point in time, I think it doesn't stop there. As we continue to build products, our focus is to be agile, really focus on the customer, continuously get customer feedback. So, every time we, think about building a new product, we're getting customer input. As we're launching that product, we're getting customer input, and then we're following up and continuing to enhance the products. It's not all about just launching the next new feature. It's really critical to really pride ourselves as an organization, as a product organization. So it's critical we get that feedback, and I think that's the reason why we're using the top, 19 of the top 20 hospitals here in the US. We've built a lot of trust within our customer base through that process.
So tell me, guys, Provation, you guys have recently expanded into international markets. What trends are you seeing there in these new markets that you're going into?
We've been talking about the burnout, coming from COVID backlogs, and COVID backlogs, that's a global issue. I mean, just think of all the medical procedures that have been postponed, sadly. So anybody who's listening, go get screened, go. And so I would say improving clinical productivity to take the burden off of physicians, off of nurses as much as possible is definitely a global issue. And I would say that we've seen the need in our Australian customers, in New Zealand. We've been working with the Australian government to try to document and report on adenomas that lead to colorectal cancer, as an example. Other areas like the Middle East, growing very quickly, they're bringing in world-class providers like the Cleveland Clinic, or in our hometown in Minneapolis, Mayo Clinic, And those big providers have brought us into those countries with them. And so international expansion, global reach is a key part of what Provation strategy is. We're in about 10 countries today. And we also do that via partnerships. We work very closely with Allscripts, Meditech, other members of the ecosystem around the world.
Now, in addition to the international expansion, maybe can you give us a little sneak peek behind the curtain as to some things that Provation is working on, or new enhancements that you're adding to your products and things?
Yeah, for sure. We definitely have some really exciting initiatives that we're working on as an organization. One that's really emerging, for example, in the GI space, is the concept of artificial intelligence and computer vision. And so we've been very excited in terms of the developments in this space. AI is used in some of the other specialties that many are familiar, but in particular in the GI space, we recently partnered with a company called Iterative Scopes, working together to bring really novel solutions to market. So examples include assisting with polyp detection. And this is really important to help physicians in terms of improving the quality of care. So increasing their adenoma detection rate, minimizing missed polyps that could lead to colorectal cancer. So that's an exciting one, but also kind of tying in with this administrative burden and the challenges that physicians face with all the documentation they need, leveraging AI to automatically document procedures, leveraging AI to also help with clinical trial recruitment. Some really big, deep pipelines in the pharma space. And what's been proven to be a really big challenge, particularly during COVID, is being able to recruit patients to participate in some clinical trials that would give access to patients access to some pretty novel treatments to help improve their care. So that's the AI space is really exciting for us, and something that we look to start launching product here in the year ahead. I'd say another big area for us is data and data solutions. There's a lot of data running through Provation products, just given the volume of use in the market. And so really looking at, as our responsibility is to not only give tools to make physicians be more productive, but also give them tools to help them leverage their data to continue to drive quality care. And so so looking at that, really building out data solutions over the next couple of years ahead to give them really maximize the value that they can get through our solutions. So those are two kind of key growth initiatives for our organization.
I think I like the way you described it. It's more like power steering, right? Like you're helping to make the workflow a lot better. You're eliminating a lot of the manual tasks, the mundane stuff, so that they can focus better on the care for the patients and off the screen, and more working alongside AI as opposed to being replaced by an AI, which I think is where we're at currently with the technology and frankly what people want. Like that is the kind of AI that people are like, yeah, give me more of that, because I can see how that directly benefits me and my patients.
Exactly. Give physicians the opportunity to practice what they love and to really focus on the patient. So that is our focus.
So if I was a hospital CIO, what would you say to me to help me start thinking about solutions like Provation? Like, how would I even know I needed a solution like yours?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. A couple of things that you could look at within your organization to, particularly in terms of this perioperative workflow. So things such as case delays and cancellations. Are you having problems with that? Look at your processes. Is it very paper-based today? Are there a lot of manual processes? What efficiencies do you have across kind of all the clinical stakeholders in your department, which is really important. So things like, quality reporting. Are you having challenges with capturing the information that you need, or even kind of, generating the appropriate quality reports that you need for submission? Also, as you look at things like CMS penalties, look at your readmission rates for post-procedure, looking at poor patients, it's patient satisfaction. Are you having some challenges in terms of patient satisfaction? Opportunities to improve that as an organization is like many organizations are really focused on operational excellence and improvement, and that's an area that, as you look at kind of what challenges you have there, as well as a lot of our solutions really support appropriate reimbursement. So look at your reimbursement rates. Are you having challenges with low reimbursement, inaccurate coding, billing, things of that nature? Those are all solutions or all challenges that Provation can help out with.
Agreed.
And is there any particular sign that you would point to, like, hey, like if you're seeing that, give me a call. Like, if you see this kind of problem, this kind of challenge, or getting this kind of feedback, like that's what I immediately should be thinking about Provation for.
Yeah, I would say kind of point back to case cancellations,
Okay.
Around your perioperative workflow. If you're still dictating procedure reports, if anesthesiologists are still documenting on graph paper, paper charting, if your nurses are documenting via paper charting, or if another great example is on the order set side. If you find that you have order sets that have not been updated in 1, 2, 3, 4 years, those are all challenges that Provation can help you address.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today in our discussion. What's the one thing you would like our viewers or listeners to walk away from this conversation with?
Well, thanks, Colin. And I would say if I were speaking with, directly, I would say, just please know that Provation's purpose is to empower providers. And that means, as I said before, help you get off the computer to spend more time in front of your patients, and help your clinicians do the same if you're an administrator. We really are here at Provation to help you and your organization to do more with less, to solve this problem of clinician burnout. We're really building a beginning to end of the patient journey productivity platform, a clinical productivity platform. And we've made a lot of strides recently expanding what we've been doing with acquisitions, as I mentioned, into the pre-procedure and post-procedure space, and into anesthesia and other specialties besides GI, where we are probably best known, and partnerships with all the EHRs to advance our vision. And it's all in service of empowering you, the clinician and the provider.
And how can people find out, or where can people go to find out more information about Provation?
Provationmedical.com, or of course these days LinkedIn or Twitter at ProvationMed on Twitter. And look, I just want to say thank you, Colin, and Healthcare IT Today for giving this opportunity to talk about this important issue.
Well, if you enjoyed this interview as much as I did, we'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give a review on iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you're listening or watching to this program. Also, head over to healthcareitttoday.com to access free resources, industry news, and insightful articles. You can also connect with us on Twitter using the hashtag HITSM. I'm Colin Hung. Thanks for being here.